Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of That Cruise Show with our co-host James from Cruise West Coast and Ashley, our cruising expert and journalist. Today we have Harry Liu from Atlas Voyages to join our talk on what cruising will look like next year and beyond. Before we go deep into our subject matter, Harry, can you tell us a little bit more about Ashley? Not about Ashley.
Well, Ashley I've known for a decade and a half. In fact, when she was telling the story about her losing her luggage, I believe that I wound up handling that case. It was one of my first jobs at Royal Caribbean.
Thank you for making sure I got my stuff back.
Yes, my God. That was an expensive bottle of shampoo, $30. I know. We got to get that back to you. So that was 2007. I joined World Caribbean in 2007. I've been handling public relations and communications for the cruise industry for more than 15 years now. I've spent nearly 9 years at Royal Caribbean. I spent 2 years over at Norwegian Cruise Lines Holdings as the senior director of corporate communications over at Regent Seven Seas Cruises. And I also did a little stint on land. I handled communications for Four Seasons Resort on the beautiful Caribbean island of Nevis.
Ooh.
Yes, indeed. And right now I'm working for Atlas Ocean Voyages. We're a brand new expedition cruise line. And let me just slip that in there because I think one of our topics today is going to be about expedition cruising, no?
Yes. There's a lot of it coming up. A lot of cruise lines have started to do that, whether they were in the past or they're new like Atlas. So we will discuss that. So, well, there we go. We have our information on Ashley now.
It's so good to be here with all three of you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you, Lou, or Harry.
Well, now that we know each other, then
it's like a sports team. It's like a sports team. Hills, Lou, Shulik.
So anyhow, and then I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that this is a live interactive show. So if you have questions, comments, complaints, suggestions even, feel free to comment and we can add those to the screen to ask our guests and panelists here. And also, if you see me looking off the screen, that's because I am looking at your comments. So don't take that as a sense of disinterest. So anyhow, thank you guys for joining us. We're really looking forward to having a great show today.
Okay. So with what does cruising look like in 2021 and beyond, what do we think is going to happen with health and sanitation? We're already seeing some things, but what do we think what's going to change in the future, you think, and what's going to stay?
Oh, is that for me?
Any of us, anybody who would like. If you want to start, Harry, go ahead. We'll go Harry and then we'll go Ashley.
Oh, God, no. Let's hear from Ashley. Oh,
sure. Put that over. Obviously, there are going to have to be some changes. I think sanitation, obviously, a huge one. I know we talked a little bit about it last week, but we're getting really bad feedback.
Is that our truck?
Wow.
Yeah, that was outside here. I will put it on mute.
That's better. Okay. Sorry. I think sanitation is going to be huge. I know we talked a little bit about it last week, but MSC has taken some really big steps. Let me back up. So MSC is a Mediterranean-based cruise line, and recently Italy gave them permission to start sailing again in the Med. So they're going to be limiting that to passengers from the Schengen region, I believe. But one of the things that they have implemented, along with the standard temperature checks and screenings, is that they're going to require passengers to book ship-sponsored shore excursions in order to leave the ship when they're in port. And I think I understand why they're doing it, but to me, that's just extreme. And so I'm very curious to see if that is going to be more widespread when we see other lines resuming operations. I'm sure there are, tons of other things that could be done to make ships safer. They're already sanitizing like crazy. They're offering hand sanitizer and masks. as I mentioned, the temperature checks, and not only just before you board, but also once you're on board, they're going to be checking you daily, sometimes twice daily, to make sure that everyone is healthy. And I think, there's issues too with people questioning whether air ducts and the ventilation systems can potentially transmit the droplets. I've heard yes, I've heard no, I've heard everything in between. And so I don't know, maybe we'll see cruise lines addressing that in some way moving forward. Harry, what do you think?
Wow. I do have to, well, let me make it a little disclaimer here. I don't speak for Atlas Ocean Voyages, but pretty much I'm drawing from my experience in 15 years in cruising. This is something, however, this is something that we are all wrestling with right now, is trying to understand the situation. And what's really puzzling for me is why the industry really isn't coming together to form one standard set of basic protocols. This is the thing. I mean, it's great that Royal Caribbean and NCL are coming together to film their own medical panel. It's great. I've seen it's quite a distinguished list of panelists on Carnival's health panel. MSC, I'm not quite sure who they're working with, but the thing is you look at, was it 2 weeks ago? Was it 1 week ago when 4 lines went out, started some bubble cruising? And they ran into a little bit of trouble. And this is the thing. I'm not quite sure that we can all do this, one at a time or in piecemeal, So I think it's great that we're all testing the water, dipping our toes in there and just checking to see what can be done. But I think, unfortunately, we're really seeing the result of this sort of unilateral move, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure why CLIA isn't being more aggressive in both corralling and coercing some of its members, as well as simply having a leadership position. Because that's, when it comes to membership organizations and trade organizations in general, they're not as valuable as they used to be. But when you have a situation like this is exactly why it's worth paying your membership dues. And so to see the confusion among potential cruisers being fomented by their lack of action really makes me wonder if there's something underlying that we're just not aware of.
Well, I really don't know the reality of this, but my personal read of what's happened in the past 2 weeks, and I'm sure you guys have seen some sort of announcement, was it 2 weeks ago, where CLIA had said that now they are engaging with the CDC to discuss some basic guidelines. I was very surprised when I saw that press release go out. The thing is that I thought perhaps CLIA was already in the process of. However, I was reading between the lines a little bit. I'm like, hold on a second. Is it just that the CDC wasn't interested in talking to CLIA up until now? And that's the thing. It's sort of like CLIA could try to take the lead on this and try to bring everyone together and coalesce the industry. But, I guess you really have to go to someone who's receptive. And and the thing is, I looked at this and I'm like, well, if I were the CDC, probably I would not have had the bandwidth to have dealt with just one industry with all that's going on. They probably were trying to think big picture, talking with all businesses as one kind of thing. And then they're like, okay, CLIA, all right, we got a little bandwidth here. Let's talk, kind of thing.
No, I think that's a fair point. I'm not criticizing the link between CLIA and CDC, because I think it really, until the last few weeks, the concept of cruising, as much as we all wished it would happen sooner, the concept of cruising starting again, it was so far off in the past that it was almost irrelevant. But in the lack of CLIA's leadership, there was a vacuum that world's leading cruise lines came together and did their own thing, and Royal and Norwegian did their own thing. But anyhow, I don't want to dwell on that too much, because I think that's one of the things that seems to be a positive move is that CLIA is taking leadership and is being the spokesman for the industry, and hopefully that'll be marked and with some ad dollars being spent and some support for the travel advisors as well. To go out there and talk to their customers. I know Heather's been very confused, or Heather has not been confused, but Heather's customers have been very confused where people say like, "Oh, I heard this was the situation," and it's confusing when Heather's having to refute stuff that they may have read somewhere else. But I think that,
and that's the worst in customer service, right? You're thinking you're giving the best information you can, and then someone just goes over your head, and you're like, "Where's that coming from?"
Exactly. I love all my customers, clients, but I try to hold back a little bit when new things come out because I want to see if it's correct, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, does anybody hear a little buzzing? Sorry, I just heard buzzing somewhere. Okay, never mind. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah. Hold on, is this the rum show from yesterday,
All I
part
heard
2?
I know, right? But no, it is a hard time for us right now. I mean, everybody wants to get back in working, making money. This is kind of off topic with it, but we have a bunch of friends that we cruised with originally 9 years ago, and they, different people have gone on cruises together every September since. So I decided to do a virtual embarkation day at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So we can just have fun, people make their own drinks. So we need to get some musician on or something so we can listen, because we're all piano bar fans too. So,
Ooh.
But yes, sorry to get off topic a little bit, but I just thought I'd go in there. There's little things you can do to kind of make it more fun still, even if you cannot be on a cruise, which unfortunately seems like it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be longer than what people think. And the main reason is temperature checks. Yes, they're doing them, but they're not working because people can go on and not have a temperature. I mean, that's proven everywhere. If you look at what just happened with the Uncruise, they thought everybody was good, came on, took that person's temperature, and then they ended up having it. Until we get some more people have it or there's a vaccine, I just feel kind of down about it.
Well, there you go. That is the whole golden grail, isn't it? That vaccine, as you say, the big V.
Exactly.
I'm curious to see what happens with capacity reduction. I know a lot of ships that are cruise lines that are booking right now are only booking the ships at 60 to 70% capacity to try to help people socially distance in a more effective way. And I'm wondering, there's also cruise lines talking about potentially laying up some ships and just not having them sail for a while. And so if they're reducing the number of ships and reducing the number of passengers on the ships that are sailing, what will that eventually mean for being able to actually book a cruise? Because it's, reduced capacity all around, fewer cabins available to book could eventually mean maybe higher prices because the lines are going to have to recoup that missing revenue somehow. And also demand, supply and demand, fewer availabilities and more people wanting to go because they've been cooped up for 6 months and haven't been able to travel. And I know right now, a lot of the lines are talking that the 2021 bookings are up because people are so antsy to get back on board. And also there are a lot of people who had sailings canceled for this year who opted, instead of taking a refund, to take future cruise credit. So they've got to use that at some point. But I'm also curious to see how that plays out, if the limiting of capacity will continue far into 2021 or, and if it does, how that will affect pricing eventually.
Right. Well, along that line, this Monday, Royal Caribbean announced their earnings for the second quarter, and they got this very interesting way of saying it, that, they were off a lot wider than they had anticipated, although that, they're saying that 2021 bookings are up by, I forget what percentage, but the question is, what's that a percentage of? Is it like a percentage of a double-digit number, a percentage of a 3-digit number, a percentage of a 4-digit number?
We expected nobody would book, and 10 people did, so it was a...
Yeah. You got your $25 deposit there. So what's that? They made $300 for the second quarter, right?
But I want to. We had a question from. I know it was probably jumping through Heather's itinerary of topics, but Mikkel And
Oh,
sorry
Michelle's
that's covering
wonderful.
up your face, Heather. But she's asking about our thoughts on U.S. cruises. And so I don't know. Do you want to start Harry or start Heather, or who wants to start with that?
Regard, gosh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Basically, she's asking about our thoughts on U.S. cruises. What are some exciting things that you've heard in this regard? And I know that Heather and I are both very excited about U.S. And I'm going to include Mexico as part of the U.S. here, especially Baja, because I think that the Sea Cortez especially and the Mexican Riviera cruises are so close to San Diego and so close to Los Angeles that they are going to be some really interesting cruises that are relatively self-contained, because Baja is really its own area, and it is so beautiful. This is a island just off the coast of Laredo, Mexico, which is just north of La Paz, where some of the Sea Cortez ships go to, and it is unspoiled beauty. It is absolutely perfect, and frankly, one of the things that my friends down there say to me right now is to say that, you know, as much as the tourism industry needs people, it's really, really nice because literally nobody's there. And it's essentially an isolated bubble where they have no fear of COVID, but as soon as that starts up again, I know it's going to change. And I know
Jinx that, James.
a few different friends from San Diego who've made the road trip down to Cabo recently, for that reason. But it's going to change. So as far as cruising, though, I think that's definitely a big trend, and I think looking at areas like Uncruise and American Cruise Lines, Snake River, as well as the Salish Sea cruises are going to be a big thing out here on the West Coast. But what are your thoughts, Heather and Ashley and Harry?
Well, it's actually interesting because I was looking at what some of the bigger cruise lines are going to do. I was trying to look up. I really want to do a wine cruise on the West Coast. And there's been great cruises, starting in San Diego or starting in Los Angeles that go to Santa Barbara, Avalon, Monterey, San Francisco, and then down to Baja. But the thing was, they have taken almost all of those off, or they've rearranged them with itineraries that are not such great itineraries. So my thing is, I think the big lines have still no clue exactly what's going to go on, and that's why the small ship industry is going to thrive, because right now, if you look at any big, cruise lines itineraries, they're all over the board, and some of them are there. You can look the next day, and that's missing. So they don't know what's going on. But the smaller cruise lines definitely, I think, have things more under control because they can. They're so much smaller. And you look at Viking, who's already booked for next year on their Mississippi voyages. Sorry about our cars. We always have so much noise. We're right downtown, so that's what we get. But yeah, I don't know if you can speak from the small ship part, Harry, maybe.
Well, you make a great point. Because the large ships, the thing about it is every guest is one wild card factor, and if you keep on adding more and more and more, the permutations of that, you wind up getting into this astronomical number. So this is why I think smaller ships, and if you're looking at this, I've actually came prepared. I've got some numbers. A topic we're going to address later on is. Oh boy, I don't want to. This is your show. I don't want to ruin this. But if you look at expedition ships, the average size is about 207 guests. This is why I think, if you look at expedition cruise ships, they are definitely booking a little bit above what you would find with the larger ship companies. So that is the thing. The more people you have, the greater the risk, I guess, and that's the important part, is trying to make sure that you make each and every person. And the thing, when I was working at Royal Caribbean, they were so good at what we call in the industry line busting, making sure that whatever it is that anyone wanted, they didn't really have to wait too long. It wasn't like more than 5 to 10 minutes. They had check-in for Oasis class what, 10 to 15 minutes from curb to ship. I mean, things like that, where all these cruise lines have to think about this, but there's a certain point, up to a certain amount of, there's just a certain ceiling in which the numbers people won't be able to handle, and where it just gets, it's a multiplier, not necessarily just, adding one and one and one. And it'll just get to that point where it's impossible. So, if you also look at river cruising, that is actually picking up pretty well too. They've started just as well as the small to midship cruising, and mostly in Europe. Is there like an American steamboat company or something?
There's American Cruise Lines we have, and we also have American Queen steamboats.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And yeah, they're, planning on getting back, but they, the one thing that really interested me in American Cruise Lines was the fact that, it's always has been, you have your own heating and, air conditioning, filtration system, and you're not sharing. So that makes a big plus when you're thinking about things too. And you're right, you can handle much more. They only take, up to 150 mostly, just like, the ocean cruises. So.
Right.
And to I think her name was Mikkel, to her point or question about the U.S. cruising, Harry, you had mentioned bubble cruising earlier, which is kind of, running cruises, but only opening them to people who live in that country or the immediate surrounding area to try to cut down on the number of potential, cross spread, I guess, of the virus. And with river cruises, they're able to cruise just within the U.S., which is nice. A lot of larger ships are not. Just due to the Passenger Vessel Services Act and all the laws that regulate that, generally require a cruise ship to call on a foreign port before they can come back to the U.S. So I think it's just a nice way too to kind of perpetuate the bubble cruising trend.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you think that perhaps bubble cruising, we might get some sort of exemption or something, a temporary exemption for
it would be nice.
having Jones Act, in the industry, Jones Act, temporary suspension, just to make sure everyone gets to cruise, but still, we're not taking whatever it is or bringing back whatever it is from different countries.
Or exactly, like if you wanted to take a 4-day, 5-day, Caribbean cruise, and you go to a private island, and then they just have to make sure the people who live on the private island who are working don't leave. But I know Norwegian, on their island, they bring the workers, they're from the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be fun. I could spend a couple days on one of those islands.
Yeah,
I don't know about you guys, they're a lot of fun and relaxing, and
they are. And I think
as long as the bartenders are working.
Yeah. Harry, I don't know if they will grant exemptions, but it seems like it would be easy enough for them to do that given the extenuating circumstances. And I know that cruise lines can also get exemptions for things like storm deviations if there's a hurricane and they're trying to navigate around it, or if there's a medical emergency. So it seems like it's a fairly easy thing to do, but who knows at this point? Anything goes, I guess.
Well, to take that analogy, to turn what you just said into an analogy, I mean, heck, we're in quite a storm right now,
And guys, I want to follow up on a comment from Mikhail earlier. She was asking about what lines are going to sail there. There are quite a number of cruise lines that already sail, or at least have sailed, including Royal Caribbean does it on the Panama Canal cruise. I don't think they have anything on the West Coast normally, but you have Vidante, which is one of the most exciting ones that I'm looking forward to. It's actually a Mexican cruise line that just took I think a 400 passenger ship and down converted it to about 200 passenger ship, totally gutted it, and they're going to be focusing specifically on the Baja and Mexican Riviera line. They have one ship that has not sailed yet because it's sitting in Ensenada Harbor, just teasing me, but it should be a good cruise line if they can make it happen. Vidanta is owned by a very large group of land-based resorts in Mexico. So I'm excited to see more of that. But then you have pretty much everybody. I mean, Holland America does some really interesting ones that go up, from San Diego, and then go up, I I know to Loreto and La Paz, but pretty much everybody goes to at least Ensenada and Cabo.
Uncruised has something in Baja, and so does Azamara. I know they do. They've got their small ships.
Yeah, he booked my parents on an Azamara cruise a couple years ago. That was supposed to come into San Diego in March, wasn't it?
Oh, they were supposed to be on one, I think. Yeah, something.
Oh yeah,
it's sad. We'll go over the bridge to Coronado, and you can see 2 celebrity ships sitting in the ocean.
Oh.
And it's sad because you're like, I just want to be on there, and they're just chilling, just relaxing.
And you can look on the map, and they're sitting exactly inside of where the range would be for the 4G LTE reception.
Oh.
You wouldn't even have to pay for the ship's Wi-Fi. Yes.
Oh gosh, that's hilarious. Oh, over here in Miami. So I live in Miami, and I would go out running to do a morning run over on Miami Beach. And from where I live, I can see the port, and every day you got ships coming in to make technical stops. Dropping off, picking up, and they have to head back out. But there's some 16 beautiful megaliners just anchored right outside, maybe about 8 miles out from the beautiful sands of Miami Beach, and they're just hanging out there, waiting. And I'm not quite sure. I think maybe now they've all been moved over to the Bahamas, but there was a very interesting story about in the Wall Street Journal maybe about 3 months ago about Ashley. You must have seen Michel Verdur's work before. He's sort of known as the cruise ship photographer.
The photographer, yes.
Yes. So he was trying to get someone to sponsor a helicopter for him so that he could go out there and get this, what he says, this is a once in a lifetime, never again photograph of all of these beautiful megaliners, just all in a circle, just waiting, and you'll never find that again.
Was he successful? Do you know if he actually, I know at the time he was not, like when the article came out, just because of, I think, trying to get someone to, I think there were issues with, it was so far that a helicopter wouldn't be able to make it without having to refuel, and they weren't allowed to land to refuel in the Bahamas. And
I don't think he's been successful yet, but, still may be. Oh, wow. Look at that. This is a current map, James?
James, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I mute that so that there's no echo between Heather and I. But no, this is a live map of the Caribbean, and there's a lot of ships out there. But it's interesting because right here in a cluster, that's a Great Stirrup Cay right here, I think,
right,
or Great Harbor Cay, which I don't know which one that is. Anyhow, Great Stirrup Cay is right here. You have Navigator. Navigator looks like it's actually docked at Coco Cay. That's where the dock should be.
Right.
But then over here, you have a whole. It's like a redneck Riviera, pontoon boat tie-up that, But the other day I saw a couple of Disney ships next to each other. I'm like, I'm sure they're not doing it, but it'd be really cool if they had like an epic horn battle.
Yes, with the "When You Wish Upon a Star."
Cool.
Exactly. So you have
I think
Reflection, Equinox, Silhouette.
For a while they were doing like a 5 p.m. salute every day. At least I know it was like Celebrity and maybe 1 or 2 other lines when the ships were all kind of anchored near one another at like 5 p.m. every day. They would all just lay on the ship horns like as a solidarity thing. And a bunch of the crew members were posting this like on Instagram and stuff. And Captain Kate was one of them, but it was really neat to hear.
It looks like only Mariner and Brilliance are docked at Dodge Island right now.
Wow. Boy, sorry, go ahead, James. Sorry.
I would have thought they would have had more in harbor there. I'm sure probably Fort Lauderdale has stuff. But let's go over to the. I'm a nerd, in case you guys couldn't tell.
I'm loving this.
Absolutely fascinating looking at these things. So over here, that little ship I was telling you about from Vedanta is still Vedanta Elegante. So that's Ensenada right here. But then over pardon my the delay and stuff. You have this is either going to be you have Millennium.
Wow.
And
Oh, I love that
right
ship.
there. And then you have, I don't know what these are. Excalibur, they're little tiny ships. Blue is passenger ships, red are freighters. And you had some other ships right over here. Old Glory, let's see for that. Well, maybe they're not over here anymore, but they used to have a bunch of ships sitting off the coast of Santa Catalina and the coast of Long Beach. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, there's the National Geographic Orion right there in Long Beach.
Wow. So, that's the thing. I just that's such, to me, I'm looking at this, it almost brings a tear to my eye because the thing about a ship is that it's, a ship is not a ship without guests on it. I've launched the first 2 Oasis class, the first 2 Quantum class, and 15 refurbished ships in my career. And I've been on the ships when it was all empty. And the Royal Promenade, there's just nothing going on. I couldn't even get an ice cream, at the cafe promenade, it was you couldn't get a sense of the space until people started interacting with it, and that's really, gosh, Ashley, you've been there, when we let the press on, and
Yes, I met you for the first time on Oasis. Yeah, the Oasis launch was when I first met Harry, and that ship is so impressive. I can't even describe it. We were on for 2 days as press. I don't think I even got to see everything in 2 days. That's how big the ship was.
And so 2 days just to walk from one end of the ship to the other,
Exactly.
I actually really like that ship. I prefer small ships, but I thought that the designers at I'm not sure what shipyard that came out of. That was Fincantieri, or that was the
Turku.
Turku in Finland.
Yes, Finnish. Yes.
Yeah, but they did a remarkable job of making that ship not a horrible experience. Because when you think about 6,000 passengers on a ship together, and cruise ships are already pretty tight. But they did a remarkable job of making that really divided up with the Central Park and that kind of stuff. So,
well, to bring this back, I mean, this is the thing. If you take a look at these mega liners, Oasis class, you probably, when you talk about guest to space ratio, the Oasis class, you're looking at probably like, and by the way, I'm not quite sure what the base is, but it's just a number where, like, on the Oasis class, it was like 0.3 or something. But if you go look at the other end to like expedition cruise ships or luxury cruise ships, you're looking at guest to space ratio of somewhere above 0.5. So you see what a difference it could be for hopefully the recovery of cruise, how luxury cruise ships and expedition ships are probably at least my company is banking on that, smaller and luxury ships are going to be earlier in the cruise industry recovery compared to the mega liners. And of course, I shed a tear to see some of these beautiful classic, what used to be considered mega liners, but they're just big ships now, all beached up and getting ready to be scrapped. That was the tough moment.
It is very sad. Speaking of, the ships themselves and the different things that are on the ships, let's kind of move into the topic of what kind of new technologies on ships, especially when it comes to, the carbon footprint. I was at a conference last year, and the different cruise lines basically are pointing fingers at each other on stage saying, we're better than you. We're better than you. You're horrible. And we sat there as travel agents going, oh my God. But there really is some great new technology advances that are coming through, especially with the carbon footprint, especially with your company, Harrison. What do you call it? I can't talk. Propulsion?
Oh, well, there's so many different things. I think this is sort of starting to become standard. The thing about every new cruise ship every new build is that, you know, every company wants to install the latest technology on it, because the environmental standards are always being raised. And that's a good thing, because we want to make sure that the places and the things that we enjoy are going to be there for future generations to enjoy. You know, so propulsion, when it comes to power generation, when it comes to power management, when it comes to emissions, you know, all of these things are really important. One of the, you know, and my ship that's coming out in July 2021, the World Navigator, my bosses and my designers, they wanted to make sure, because it's almost like buying a computer. Or buying a car, as soon as you drive it off the lot, or as soon as you take it home, it starts to become obsolete, right? So on my ships, especially where we're going, you know, Antarctica or to the Black Sea, throughout the Mediterranean, there's a lot of regulations, and you know, where they say, hey, you can only burn low sulfur bunker oil. You know, that's just diesel oil, low sulfur, so that the emissions are not going to be are not going to have all the sulfur oxide, I believe, sulfur dioxide. However, you know, companies are also installing what we call scrubbers into the funnel, so that ultimately any sort of bad elements that get through the combustion process and make it to the funnel, we're going to capture that. So I think Carnival did an amazing illustration, I think it was a year or two ago, where there's an open scrubber system and a closed scrubber system, and they use water to help bond to these sulfur atoms and all that kind of stuff, and then it gets heavy and it drops down, and then they collect it, and then they offload it to a shoreside, a responsible shoreside waste handler. So, you know, that's one thing that pretty much you're going to find on most cruise ships that are coming out. You know, you don't, because if you build an obsolete ship, you're not going to be able to sail it to the places that you want to, and the places you want to sail it to are going to be the ones that are going to command the highest, what we call per diem. You know, sure, you can do a great Caribbean cruise, but you could probably earn twice, thrice, or 4 times that amount if you can take that ship to the Antarctic or to the Arctic. And you know, and those are the places that are highly regulated. You know, one thing that my company, I don't, all right, this is not a commercial for Atlas, but I thought this was quite ingenious when I heard about it. You know, we have this thing, what we call a hydrojet propulsion system. So it's, I don't know if any of you have seen the 80s movie, The Hunt for Red October, starring, yes, Sean Connery, where they had a Russian submarine, Russian submarine that had a silent propulsion system. So my chairman over in Portugal, he got these installed on the ship as an alternate propulsion system. So we can turn off the propellers and engage the silent propulsion system. And we can actually go into like sensitive areas and not frighten the marine wildlife. Because the thing is, when you're running propellers, it's creating all this air bubbles, and it's causing this big underwater noise. And that's what scares off all the fish. And so when we engage this, we can only cruise up to 5 knots. But, you know, in this case, the fish aren't stressed out. And then, of course, you know, marine wildlife, from what I understand, too, if they're stressed, they could potentially die. Look at pufferfish, you know? So, you know, things like that. A lot of innovative things where it's not necessarily that these companies are creating or inventing them, but, you know, these technologies are becoming available off the shelf. And all it is just being able to integrate that seamlessly and effectively into ships. You know, you go to Ships R Us and yeah, I want that. I'll take that. And
I think the other half of that, though, is the customer
absolutely.
Right. You know, and I think there's a demand and an interest that you know, for instance, Hurtigruten, probably slaughtered the name pronunciation, has invested extremely heavily into some technologies that frankly aren't really proven yet, and probably aren't as good as they appear to be on paper. But for instance, the hybrid propulsion system that they have, where they can cruise for so long on batteries, that has got to cost them a fortune, you know, to do. And
Yeah.
there's probably other alternatives that are cheaper and provide 90% of the value. But a Hurt and Gluten customer is willing to pay for that, to have the sense that they are doing the best for the environment. Whereas, I'm not going to single out any other cruise lines, but another cruise line passenger may just say like, hey, you know what, screw it, I want to go to the Arctic, and this one is $700 less per person, so I'm going to do that one instead. But it's great that there's competition out there.
Yeah. Well, look. Sorry, please. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I think that it's important to note too that these cruise lines are really sparing no expense to retrofit some of these ships. I think it's a lot easier to implement these technologies when it's a new ship and you're building it and you can do it right out of the gate. But a lot of these ships are older and are now having to comply with these environmental regulations. So the lines are going back and investing heavily to install things like scrubbers that Harry mentioned. And a lot of ships are now being built with LNG, which is liquefied natural gas, to run on that instead of the diesel that has been used for the past few decades. It started out with one ship, I think it was Ida, which is a German line, in 2018. And now like 20 plus new ones have been announced that are going to be running on LNG. And James mentioned Hurtigruten, which built the first hybrid ship, and it'll run partially on LNG and partially on batteries. So, I mean, this is a huge financial investment, which is great to see. And also smaller things like eliminating single-use plastics. A lot of the major lines have done that as well, because those things tend to, be hard to recycle. They blow overboard. They can pollute the ocean. I mean, it's a really conscious effort that is welcome and nice to see.
And the LNG issue is this is not the place to go into the debate over LNG versus marine fuel, but but regardless, LNG is here to stay. One of the big challenges of LNG is not so much just the ship infrastructure, because certainly it is a different process and a different sense of engineering, but it's also an issue of investing millions of dollars into port infrastructure. And right now, I think on the East Coast, it's mostly in Orlando and I think, does Miami or Fort Lauderdale? I'm not sure, but I know Vancouver is in the process of putting an LNG fueling station in there for cruises out of Vancouver as well. But everybody will eventually, but it's still a massive investment, and it's kind of a chicken and the egg, because you're not going to have Carnival send whatever the successor is to Mardi Gras over to the West Coast for Alaska cruises unless they know that they can fuel up.
Right. And along the lines of LNG, it is, step by step. One of the not so new technologies, I think maybe in the past 5 years or so, is cold ironing. Hey, why should these ships be burning fuel while they're just sitting and tied up at dock while the guests are off, enjoying the port, right? So being able to just plug into the city's power system and heck, just save some emissions. That's going to be over the beautiful port that is the main attraction. So a lot of great stuff that's happening, as you guys are saying.
And then even beyond the actual propulsion, which is kind of the big sexy investment element. I think the more subtle trend of going to smaller ports, taking smaller ships, taking a cognizant shore excursion plan, where at one point it may have been like, we're going to take 200 people and 4 buses to Chichen Itza. Now it's more like, hey, we're still going to take 200 people, but we're going to specifically space them out so that this bus leaves every at half-an-hour intervals, so that it's not having 200 people descend on a historic site. And frankly, Chichen Itza is probably one of the bad examples on there, because there's thousands of people that are going to go there anyhow. But for some of the other destinations, and especially up in Alaska, you see there might be 1,000 people that leave on Zodiac, but they're all going to different places, so that the impact on any one area is less. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue at all levels. I mean, certainly, Harry, you guys are part of that trend, but also
right.
It's the $700 Caribbean cruises that are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you've hit on an interesting point, James, is that we might be seeing the departure of mass tourism as a result of this. And we're looking at something that one of my former bosses, and definitely someone I look up to in this industry, Larry Pimentel. He stepped down from Azamara, but I was with him when he rebranded Azamara in 2010. He had always been saying access is the new luxury, and the thing is to go to these smaller ports, these very small attractions that can only accommodate 5-10 people, to see what no one else can see, to touch what no one else can touch, to feel what no one else can really imagine, and that's sort of like, I think, is going to be a big element in the future of travel and tourism, and definitely cruising.
Yeah.
Right.
We've seen the Galapagos explode the last couple of years. Cruise lines like Celebrity, for example, or Seabourn, that really were not necessarily expedition cruise lines prior, have sort of entered that arena with specific ships that can go to the Galapagos. They can go to smaller areas of Alaska and really kind of give you a more off the beaten path experience within those destinations, which is really, really neat. It plays into the exclusive access thing that you were just mentioning, Harry.
And even Princess still maintains their I can't remember the name of their small-ish ship, but certainly that ship is designed kind of the same thing to do, expedition-ish type things. And I hope that's not one-on-one on the chopping block, because it's an older ship, but it would be nice to see more of those, even if that costs a premium, because I feel like there's got to be a space between a $3,000 to $5,000 small ship experience and a $700 giant ship experience. I mean, I kind of wish, if we could have, and actually, that space is Azamara. Azamara is exactly that space, but I'd like to see more of that to allow us to go to smaller destinations, but not have to spend, a $10,000 per couple vacation.
Yeah, and I think if cruise lines do start making excursions mandatory in order to leave the ship, I'll be honest with you, I would much rather be forced to go on an excursion with a small ship than with a large one, because on larger ships, some of these excursions tend to be like, James was saying, they take hundreds of people and just dump them somewhere, and you feel like a number, like you're being herded like cattle. And yeah, often a lot of the mainstream excursions can be, especially the more affordable ones, can be you don't really get to do what you want to do. It's kind of just a very prefabricated itinerary, and you may spend a lot of that time on a bus just to get to where you're going. I mean, so I think in that way, if this does end up happening, small ships would give a better experience.
Right.
Oh, definitely. Now, I know, Harry, I'm not saying that, it's not a commercial for your cruise line, but you guys are doing something that maybe other cruise lines are doing that I just didn't know about, your anchor system.
Oh, yes. Well, dynamic positioning, we call it. To tell the truth, it's not new. This is something that's been incorporated. It just so happens that my company happens to have a really good PR person.
Who is that?
Oh gosh. So there are other cruise lines that do have this, and essentially this is anchorless. It is anchorless docking. Whenever you're pulling up to, the traditional way of stopping a ship in the middle of nowhere is to drop your anchor. However, what you don't see really does make a difference. That anchor is tons and tons of pure steel, and when that hits the floor of the sea, we're looking at over here in Miami Beach, we're dealing with the loss of coral. Coral and reef systems are the homes of beautiful fish and marine wildlife. And the thing is, when you destroy that, the fish have nowhere to go. They have no food. They have no protection. And so this is why dynamic positioning, because we have so many satellites up in the space now, all it's just like your car, except that Siri or Waze is connected straight into your steering wheel and your acceleration pedal. And now cruise ships can really just say, I want to stay right here within about 3 yards difference, and program that in, and You just walk away, and the ship will just stay within that position for as long as you want it to. And this way, we're not disturbing any wildlife. We're not disturbing any marine habitats. It's really important, and the thing is, sure, at one time, I think the industry didn't know about this, but once we did know about this, we take quick course to correct it.
So are you using azipods
So-
and bow thrusters to make that happen, or?
Absolutely. I think what azipods make it so much easier, because an azipod is maybe any of the viewers might not know, it's essentially a propeller that can rotate 360 degrees, 365. Is it 360 or 365? I forget. All the way around.
365 days in the year, 360 degrees.
Oh boy, this is why I'm doing PR and not doing rocket science or brain surgery. But yes, but look, this is all this technology is great. But all this technology really is nothing except, unless it's being applied towards getting us somewhere, right? And this is the thing, is that some of these destinations that we're going, some of these places, I feel like a lot of cruise lines now, it's not just ports that are that are bordering water. Cruise lines are getting deeper inland. It's essentially becoming more and more just a floating hotel where you can take in a region, and whether it's docking, tying up to a pier, or just waiting, using anchorless position out in the water and tendering in. I mean, some of these destinations aren't even real full-fledged destinations.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I say, in addition to the port, I think it's really interesting what Carnival's doing next year for their, I don't know if it's their 50th anniversary or 30th or some kind of anniversary, but they're doing a celebration meetup on the West Coast and the East Coast. And to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what it is and what they're doing, but you can actually book a trip that's listed as one of their celebrations, and they'll have like 4 or 5 different ships that all meet up together in the middle of the ocean, and so certainly,
Yes.
that is an attraction for that ship, and I'm sure it's being priced accordingly. That there's probably an extra $25-$50 in that voyage versus the one a week before, a week after, because people want to be a part of that event as opposed to simply booking a cruise where they go to Puerto Vallarta. And I think those kind of things I'd like to see more of. And hopefully it's something cool. Like I would love to see Carnival do like a light show, or do something where the different ships blink on and off, or do something. I don't know what they're going to do, but the point is that those kind of creative things should be something that more cruise lines start exploring. Also want to give a shout out to Melissa Garcia, who is one of those people who Heather mentioned before, the fact that we're a passionate cruiser, but unfortunately, having been in a rough series of spots where she's booked and had cruises canceled this year, but thankfully she's also one of those people who's a super loyal cruiser that is continuing to be rebooking as opposed to simply asking for refunds. So thank you, Melissa, for being a loyal customer for Heather. And
Thanks, Melissa.
Melissa.
She's excited for her cruise next year. She's going to Alaska. She rebooked for Alaska. So.
It's a
Love
wonderful place. Ashley, I think you're there already, right? Is that a
Yes.
glacier in the back I see?
I believe that is Dawes Glacier in Endicott Arm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, James, what you were saying about these things, us cruisers, right now, I think, it's destination or just getting on a ship. Cruise Critic, they do this weekly cruiser sentiment report, and they found that like 60% of new bookings are for the Caribbean, the tried and true Caribbean. And that's the thing, is that if you ask me where I want to go, I'm like, hey, I don't care. I just want to be on a ship. I miss a ship,
I would be very happy at this point. I would pay full price for if we did a cruise out of San Diego where I could walk down to the port, walk on the ship with my bags, not have anybody else touch it. Get me a balcony cabin on. I don't even care. Like Carnival is not my first choice of cruise lines probably normally, but they're a great support of the West Coast, and I really appreciate that. But Carnival Miracle, get me on that ship. Let me get a balcony room, and even if I don't leave the cabin the whole time, just being able to sit out there, get some fresh air, and see the water would be so nice. But I think even once it's ready, once the CDC clears it, I think the reality is those ships are all going to be cleaner, more cognizant of regulations than any land-based resort. Like I don't feel comfortable going into a hotel right now with an elevator. Because
Yeah.
I don't feel
Yeah.
confident that I'm not going to name names because it doesn't matter, but any of them don't have the same level of courtesy and care that cruise ships did last year. And I think that's really important to
Right.
have confidence in what's going on and the fact that they care for you, and that's going to continue, not just through next year, but certainly, 2022, 2023 as well.
Right.
The cruise industry has been such a scapegoat within the realm of travel. I think it has really been the one that everyone's pointed the finger at and blamed for the spread of the virus and for not being sanitary, and which is not true. And I think the fact that cruise lines are testing out different protocols and trying to sail in certain regions just to see how it goes, I think they're going to be a blueprint for hotels, potentially airlines as well. I mean, anywhere where you're traveling that has a lot of people close together.
And the scapegoating of the cruise lines. I mean, I think there's a government thing, but then there's also just simply brand damage. I mean, if you look at Diamond Princess was a part of the expression, a jewel in the princess's crown, having phenomenal cruises in Japan, and I think they went to China too. I'm not sure, but they announced a few weeks ago they're pulling it from Asia and relocating it to some other part of the world. Certainly, Princess is not done in Japan. I mean, that's too lucrative of a market. But the fact that Diamond Princess now has been identified as being the COVID ship, while they did not say that in the press release clearly, has been marked as being the COVID ship, and it's no longer marketable in that market.
Well, let me just add, I guess, this is the thing. Maybe 2-3 months ago, still everyone were pointing fingers. I feel like right now you can see a lot less finger pointing going around. And we're realizing that this isn't a cruise ship crisis. This is not a travel crisis. This is not a national crisis. This is a global crisis, This is what we're looking at. And it just so happens that cruise ships were the very first to be scapegoated. But now, heck, there's no ships cruising. There are no travelers cruising on ships. And we see 49 out of 50 states in the red. Germany, who was, such a poster child. Japan was such a poster child in the beginning. We're either seeing a resurgence, a second wave, or the second half of the first wave. And this is what I mean about, the world has to come together. This is a global issue, not a travel sector issue like us,
Look at
Exactly.
New Zealand. New Zealand had 102 days of no COVID cases, thought that they were impenetrable, and boom, there you are. Australia the same way, and Hawaii is growing really rapidly now too. And I think it's one of those situations where probably a big trend from a macro perspective for next year is simply, I mean, the reality is COVID's not going away. Even if we have a vaccine that's somewhat effective, and by somewhat I mean like 30 to 50% effective by the end of the year, COVID's still going to be an issue for the next 2 years. But we're going to have learned how to deal with things, and hopefully how to mitigate efforts, not just for COVID, but for COVID 22, COVID 23, whatever might, not trying to jinx anything, but whatever may come next, because there will be a next, and hopefully that's a big trend that we're able to be more comfortable with things and understanding where our tolerances and where our limits are.
Well, can I ask you guys a question?
Of course.
All right, I'm curious. I mean, money's not a factor. You don't have to get on a plane. We finally developed, Star Trek beaming technology, and you can pick up any ship of any size anywhere in the world. Where would you go? Where where would you go? Anywhere in the world, right now, on a ship.
Right this moment with the current world conditions.
No. I mean, this is pretend. This is pretend. We're imagination land. Where would each one of you? What do you want to see? What is up there? Top 3. Choose one on your bucket list.
I'll start first, and then we'll go to Ashley and James. Honestly, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and I love the Great Lakes, and I'm very excited about Viking's new ships on the Great Lakes. I wish, they'd stop at some of the smaller, beautiful, there's so many beautiful places on Lake Michigan. So I wish that somebody did that, because there's so much history there. I love history. I mean, people don't realize you have waves on the Great Lakes, especially on Lake Erie and Lake Michigan. So it can get kind of, hairy like the ocean and stuff. But I just think that would be so cool to be on such a big body of water in our own country. Well, yeah, say in Canada too, but that probably is a bucket list thing. And I will have to add another one too. I did a big ship cruise from, where were we? Boston. And we did like Halifax and St. John up that way. And that was a lot of fun. And I would like to take a longer cruise that went up and around and then ended in Quebec City.
Wow.
Yes. So those are mine. Ashley?
So ones that I've done that I loved and would do again in a heartbeat would be Alaska, preferably with like a land extension to check out Denali and parts of the Yukon and stuff. Norwegian coastal going up through the Arctic Circle. And one I haven't done that I've been dying to do is the Greek Isles.
Ooh. James. Come on now. Of course.
There's a whole bunch of things, and I'm going to throw 2 out just because one I'm going to disqualify because I know you don't want it to be a commercial for you, but honestly, the Black Sea and Ukraine would be something I would love to go just because it's different.
Well, go to Chernobyl. Atlas is the only cruise line that will take you to Chernobyl.
I heard that's a really hot destination.
Ooh, can I amend my list? Can I amend my list now?
but that being said, I think one of the areas that, in case you guys couldn't tell, I have a trend here of going to places that aren't being gone to by, other people. There's some really cool small ship, super niche cruise lines in Indonesia. And they are like, I think one of the ones I was looking at is actually a mail carrier that has like 5 rooms or 10 rooms. And does it have a spa? Does it have a Galaxy Pavilion, the VR gallery and stuff? Hell no. But you're literally going to islands that no one else is going to from a tourism perspective. You're stopping in bays where you're the only person who might have swam there the entire, well, aside from the people who live there, that month. I think that there's some really cool opportunities around the world, and it's not just Indonesia. There's places like that. I mean, the Amazon cruise that are starting to pop up. But really just going someplace that
mosquitoes. That's the only reason why I would not want to do Amazon. All I can think about is mosquitoes.
But I've been obsessed with Indonesia, and so I think that Indonesia. I mean, yes, you have Bali and you have the tourist places and that kind of stuff. And honestly, would I like to go to Bali? Yeah, I'd like to check that off my list. But really, there's these unexplored islands all in the south, in the Southeast Asia that would be. I can go back with photos of places, and nobody else has those photos, and that's really what is on my bucket list.
Wow! Look, maybe you should look at this cruise line / cargo shipper called Aranui. My wife sailed on that ship maybe 5 years ago. It's half cargo ship and half cruise ship, maybe 20 or 30 passengers. It's contemporary, but you sail around all of Tahiti, Aranui. It's actually a Taiwanese company. It looks like if you chopped a cargo ship in half and a cruise ship in half and then put them together.
Oh, you know what? This is one of the ones that I was looking at, and I guess I'm saying Indonesia, but there's all
South Pacific. You're saying,
South
right?
Pacific. Here, I got to throw this up on the screen because that is one of the ones I was looking at. These just this totally bizarre concoctions that that work for that market. So if anybody,
There she is.
See.
let's see if I can
Right.
blow this up.
Oh, that is, yeah, I've seen that ship
Right?
before.
I mean, this gives new meaning to the term, like, what is that? Work in front, party in the back.
It looks top heavy. Like it would just stand up on its, like on.
And inside, like it looks like it's a real cruise ship.
Yes. So, as the ship's going around doing provisioning stops, they have guests on there that they have to, I guess, supplement the company's coffer.
Well,
And
and that's kind of what I was saying, mail, but there's cargo, mail, kind of all together, and I think that's just those things. I don't even know what the prices are on these, but it doesn't even matter because I think when you're
is one of those kinds of cruise lines. I mean, they are the they are the mail carrier.
no, but
They just happen.
I'd rather be somewhere nice and warm
Hmm.
than that. But yeah, but in general, the thing that drew me to cruising in the first place, aside from the fact that it was a way of getting, out of internet and out of phone range, was seeing places that we truly loved. I mean, we started small, to our see someplace new. It was let's go. We couldn't decide what Caribbean islands we wanted to go to. We knew that we had a great time in Jamaica on our honeymoon, and we went to a sandals resort, and that was pretty sanitized and all that kind of stuff. We said, hey, we want to go back to the Caribbean. What do we do? And so we picked a cruise line, and it was a 7-day with 5 port stops.
Wow.
And that was pretty intensive for our first cruise, but it hooked us, and this sense of exploration was amazing. And even when we went to what's the island? St. Lucia.
Oh, beautiful.
We took a tour, but at the end of the tour, we kind of said like, hey, instead of taking us back to the cruise port, where do you guys like to have lunch? Where do you recommend? And a lot of places, that's a really bad idea. But it was how we like to explore. And so they dropped us off at this little couple beach shacks next to the airport, and the taxi drivers were all lined up, and you kind of know, like if that's the taxi drivers are having lunch, it's probably pretty good and it's probably really cheap. So like for $5, we had this huge plate of fish and rice and beans and. I think they had some local St. Lucia beer that was ice cold. We're sitting there freaking on the
Piton beer. Come on. Piton beer in St. Lucia.
Yeah, I'm sure that was exactly what it was. So for $5, we had this amazing lunch that, our friends probably spent $25 buying the same fish, the same stuff, but not cooked as well, not cooked as authentically, and certainly didn't have the view that we did. And that's what I love about cruising.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh. Heather, you're muted.
I thought I was muted before. Sorry. So Harry, how about you? Where would you go?
I'm gonna admit to you guys, I've been all over the world, but I have not seen any part of it. I've always stayed on ship and worked. The thing is, right now, I'm looking forward to maybe doing Antarctica again. I've been there twice. I don't remember it. That was 15 years ago. And I was just running around. Ashley might know. I mean, when I'm on a ship, I'm working, and it's just like, oh.
You are on. You are on.
So I would love to see Antarctica again.
Harry,
yes.
I know Atlas goes to Antarctica. What are some of the highlights from the Atlas Voyages there?
We're going to our Antarctic season. Inaugural Antarctic season is going to be winter 2021-22. So there's 2 really cool things that's happening in that season. There's going to be a total eclipse of the sun in November in Antarctic waters. So, other expedition cruise lines and us, we are all set to be within that cone of eclipse. And that's going to be just simply spectacular, to see. Oh, thank you. Yeah, look at that. So, I mean, they call this by the way, trivia question from on the ships. What is the largest desert in the world? It is Antarctica.
Did not realize
Learn
that.
something new every day.
So there you go. My wife and I, we clean up in trivia on ships. So Antarctica, it is just spectacular. It's just you, the penguins, the seals, the whales, the penguins. I mean, they're everywhere, and there's barely anyone around. It's what I remember 15 years ago is that people, the ships, they all work in a cooperative way. The captains will talk to each other and say, hey, we got some penguins just hanging out here. We're going to be busting out of here in an hour. You guys should come on over. And then, the captain, it's a lot of what we call captain's choice. There are no ports in Antarctica. There's some general sites that are must see. And I think all of us are doing a Antarctic Circle crossing. I believe what is that? Is that the red or the blue or something? Every one of these you get like some sort of a badge for. But for me, you get to see 5 different kinds of penguins. I also, if you ever go to the South Shetland Islands and the South Georgia Islands, there are some other penguins over there. I'll tell you, when I was cruising in the Far East, it's one temple after another, It's great. It's great history, but, I just want to go eat. In Europe, it was one church after another. Like, okay, this is great. What are we eating? In Antarctica, I don't recall being that hungry, and this is the thing when you're going, what I really thought was really cool, because I lived outside of a Six Flags when I was growing up as a kid. And I used to go ride the roller coasters all the time. People say they do not like what is that? The crossing right there.
Is it the Drake Passage?
The Drake Passage, thank you. You're looking at 50-foot sea swells and all that kind of stuff. I mean, literally, you're just going up and down. It is like a roller coaster. I love that part. That's what I'm looking forward to, actually, to tell the truth. Eating and riding a roller coaster at sea.
I probably would go to sleep with that, because that rocking motion, really, I mean, it all depends which direction it's going to. But if it was in the right direction, that would put me to sleep. Best sleep.
It's a lot different than the rocking motion that we had on the way to Bonaire, though.
What does that mean? is that supposed to be a... Oh, yeah.
No. Oh yeah.
It means take some Dramamine or Bonine with you.
Well,
That's what it means.
The passage across the strait, though, is pretty aggressive, from my understanding, especially if it's in a small boat. It's not. It's not kind of the gentle. Nobody I've talked to that's ever done that has not gotten at least sick a little bit.
Yes, that's what they say. They tell you to get the patch that's scopolamine and dexedrine, a Scopedex patch. I don't know. I tell people personally, I didn't do it, because what that does, that's essentially, those are scopolamine is a Schedule 1 medication. So one is an upper, one's a downer. So it sort of like dulls your senses. Yeah. But what it does is it dulls your nerves and your receptors and all that kind of stuff, so you don't feel sick. But at the same time, you're sort of enjoying the experience like 80-90% kind of thing. And for me, I'm like, forget it. I want the full 100%.
Worth it.
Talk to, so it's worth it. But it's certainly something to be aware of. I want to throw in some questions. So Mikkel said definitely she likes the Atlas Ocean Voyages, Black Sea itineraries, and the Mekong River with aqua expeditions. I definitely think that Mekong River is going to be a really hot spot. Not necessarily next year, but I think Viking launching Viking Saigon for 2022 or 2023 is going to bring a whole another level. Certainly, they're not the only cruise ship doing that itinerary, that route, but certainly Viking has probably one of the biggest CRMs right now in the cruise industry, and the fact that they're promoting that is going to raise all boats, no pun intended. And then Melissa says at GNC's, again, another trend for next year or the year after is Celestial is moving from, and Heather, you have more information about Celestial because I know you've talked with them, but my understanding is that they right now have some older vessels, but they just ordered a couple new ones. Do you have any more information about that, Heather?
Actually, I do not at this time, but
I'm sorry. I know you've been talking to me about Celestial, and I met the president at.
No, I have. Yeah, I just haven't heard anything else
Well,
about
Celestial
it.
bought one of the Carnival or RCL ships, didn't they?
Yeah, their ships, they're pretty old. And at the inside, it's not very... I mean, they do grease very well, but you have to know when you're going on it. Think about 1970.
Oh, that was a nice decade. I was born then, but
Yeah,
exactly.
They bought the Costa Neo Romantica.
That's it. Yes.
Which
but I feel like
older ship, but it's not like it's a terribly older ship.
Right, and I feel like somewhat it's the destination, right? That's the reason you're going. It's not so much for you're not looking to stay on board all day and enjoy the ship. You're looking to go see some really cool places.
That's true.
A destination.
But I have to say, that's one of the big things that people, when they come talk to me, it's always, what does it look like on the inside? What is my room going to look like? I'm like, well, don't you want to know about where you're going? It's always the aesthetics of the inside of the ship.
That's my wife. I took her. I told her we're going to Wisconsin for a fish show, and she says, "Hey, so what hotel are we staying at?"
I would ask that in Wisconsin too, because I've stayed at many hotels there.
But yeah,
just to put it in comparison, so Neo Romantica launched for Costa in 1993. So it's still I don't know what's that, 27 years.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the thing that really gets me is, yes, I've said this before, I'm a germaphobe. But I really hate the old hotel ways of the comforters where they don't change them. And so if you go to a hotel or if you're on a cruise ship where you've got the old style comforter, it still gives me the heebie-jeebies. I can't do that. I can't. And not saying, I mean, I've just seen pictures and that's what it looks like. But.
So I just did a quick Google search, and the Costa Neo Romantica, I guess, is in the same class as the Costa Classica. So I think the Bahamas Paradise Cruise Line is now running the former Costa Classica. And I remember, back when it was launched in 93, right? You say 92, 93, their back pool, their aft top deck pool was the most innovative and the most spacious pool deck of the industry at that time. I mean, that's the thing about it is you can say, hey, I am on the most innovative cruise ship of 1993.
And that's something that I aspire to when I book a vacation. I don't want these newfangled things. I don't need to do scenic eclipse. I don't need to have submarines and underwater observation decks. It's that sense of pride in saying, like, I swam in the most innovative swimming pool of a cruise ship 27 years ago.
But sometimes those older ships can be fun, especially like, James, you were talking about being a nerd. I am too, ship nerd. I sailed with Bahamas Paradise a few years ago on, I think, is it Grand Celebration? And it used to be Carnival Celebration. So that is an old ship. Now, this line runs 2-day sailings back and forth between Freeport in the Bahamas and West Palm Beach in Florida, or the Port of Palm Beach in Florida. And, it's an older ship, but it was neat to see the differences in architecture between the older style ships and the newer style ships, because the new ones have these big, tall, sweeping, atriums that are multiple decks high. The older ships don't. The older ships often have dead ends that make no sense. Like, you'll be trying to get to the dining room for dinner and you have to go like up 2 decks all the way across the ship and back down again just to get there. So it's neat from that perspective. And also, I mean, it depends what you're looking for, really. Because with the sailing like that, it's mostly for people just looking for a quick weekend getaway. They want to go on board, have some drinks, enjoy the nice weather, and at that point, it's not really. It's I feel like it's equally about the ship and the destination, right? Because either one of them is the best, but you enjoy it. It is what it is. There's no pretense.
I
Actually, I
totally
agree with you.
I'm just being a smartass.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think those kind of ship nerd trivia things are super cool. I mean, like the fact that I didn't realize that that Sovereign was a legendary ship when it launched, and now unfortunately it's sitting in a scrapyard waiting for a torch to hack it apart for scrap. And so I wish I had been able to go on that ship, but and the other half of where I'd want to go right now, I would love to do Paradise cruises. I think that's a phenomenal product that it flies in the face of the fact that I would love to be also sitting on the deck of one of Atlas World Discoverer. You said
World Navigator. World Discoverer is one of our upcoming ships. So we have one ship that's due July 2021, and then we have 4 more ships that I'm gonna get before the end of 2023. So it's a fleet of 5. It's amazing.
And as nice as it would be to lay on the deck of any one of those new ships, the reality is like sitting on the deck of Paradise, a Paradise cruise ship with a Bahama Mama in my hand and my wife next to me would be equally appealing right now. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for everything.
James, Heather, Ashley, get in the car. Come on down here to Miami. We'll go on a 2-night cruise. And the thing is, they let you bring your own booze on.
Sweet.
Oh, even better.
And Miguel, thank you so much for watching. We've enjoyed the conversation. We've kind of run on longer than we expected. My social media is for mostly at Man Tripping on pretty much everything, and also cruisewestcoast.com, and the same thing on Instagram. What about you guys?
I keep my Facebook kind of private out of my industry life, but for the most part, my Twitter and Instagram though are both Slyjabroni, SLYJABRONI.
And mine is Flow Voyages on Facebook, and on Instagram it's Flow Crap. No, it's not Flow Crap, but it's Flow. It's Flow. I think somebody had Flow Voyages, so it's something like that on there if you search for it. And on Twitter, I am Chick Vacations.
Mikkel is awesome, by the way. She is a blogger that's right now in North Carolina. She actually just moved there from Fort Lauderdale, and she's also a cruise fan. She loves ships, but she also is an expert in Central Florida and attractions there. Just FYI.
Awesome. Thanks for all the great questions, Mikkel.
Yeah.
James, you're muted.
Mikkel, thank you for being awesome on here, and definitely either Harry, can you connect us or reach out to us?
Absolutely.
We'd love to have more cruise fans and all that on there. And plus, I used to live in North Carolina, so anybody from North Carolina is cool in my book until they're not cool. So you definitely seem like you're in the cool category. So thank you very much for being part of the show today.
Oh, thank you, Mikkel.
Well, I guess we probably should wrap up things in general. I want to thank Harry for being on. And I also want to say, too bad I can't say, let's just hop on a ship and go right now. But, maybe you can get on a pontoon boat of your own or rent one or a speedboat and just imagine that you're on a big ship.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, with
all
some,
good things
with
in
some
time.
grappling hooks and a fishing boat, we can be on a cruise ship in about a half an hour if you want, Heather.
I'm pretty sure they have procedures in place to ward that off. People will be throwing deck chairs at us and using hoses.
And just like that, James sealed his never invite category for Celebrity Cruise Lines. Let's get my grappling hook.
We'll have to take a video for driving over the bridge to show you next week. It's really incredible. At least it it's beautiful to me to see that, because you go over, you're on the bay, you see the bay, and then all of a sudden you see the land and the ocean, and then it's just, I don't know. I'm a geek with that. It's just beautiful.
Oh. All right, guys. This has been fun. Harry, thank you.
Yes, thanks for being on and all of your knowledge.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, James. This is so much fun talking with you guys. Thank you for having me on. This is, I don't know what the solution to our situation is, but really, I feel like we just have to keep the conversation going, and only in talking with each other, maybe one of us will just happen on to the solutions, like, bing, it's like, yes, that's it,
Here's hoping. It'll be so worth it once we can get back on board.
We'll all just wear hazmat suits.